Please welcome to the program, Mali Elfman.
Hello, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm great.
Good stuff. So I got a chance about last month to check out Next Exit. Really enjoyed the film. For people who haven't had a chance to hear about it yet, what is Next Exit all about?
It's an incredibly hard question
Yes,
to
it's a
answer.
loaded question. I know.
That's why you're making me do it, isn't it? You don't want to have to do it yourself. I get it. I get the game here. Next Exit is a road trip story about two people, one who's trying to escape something and one who's trying to go towards something, all set in a world in which we have scientifically proven that ghost exists, and we can see, track, and record them into the afterlife. And these two people are going to go be a part of the study and become pioneers into the next realm.
Yeah, no, the idea of having proof of existence of an afterlife kind of would change the entire landscape of humanity as we know it. And I know that when you sat down to finish, I know you've wrote the script over 10 years, but when you decided to finish the script, it was during a time when the landscape had changed for the face of humanity for the unforeseeable future. So was the whole goal to have a commentary about the pandemic without making a pandemic film?
It's interesting that people are saying that, because I think that that's the conceit was always the conceit. I just feel like people all of a sudden after the pandemic bought it. Where I used to say this one thing changes and then this ripple effect happens. And people are like, no, if something big happens, everybody kind of feels the same. And I'm like, I don't think that's the way. And so all of a sudden when COVID hit and everybody kind of went poof, in all these different directions, everybody's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. It was so suddenly I went from this, it was just funny how relevant it was. I definitely did do a pass with that understanding and with the knowledge that people would have. And I did finally go back and honestly just really finish the script into a place, because I had finished it a couple of years earlier in terms of a script that I could take to financiers and producers and all the rest of it. But I finally, during the start of the pandemic, I had a production that was supposed to go that stopped. I had so many things that stopped. And I just sat with this and I really kind of fine-tuned it and did that extra little pass that got it ready to actually be able to shoot it. And it is always that like little tiny fine-tuning that I think makes a huge difference, whether it be in writing, whether it be in production, or whether it be in post. So
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, well, again, the film does feel a lot more relevant in this situation, definitely. Now, of
Can
course,
I ask you, can you hear the like flock of birds that just appeared outside my window, or are you not hearing any of that? Do you need me to close my window?
I cannot hear the birds.
It's wild. It's like I'm in the birds right now and they're coming to attack me, but
Oh
I'm
my
glad that you
God.
can't hear
Oh
it.
my God. I hope that they do not burst through the windows.
If they do, it's gonna be the hell of a recording for you. So
It will be. It
we'll
will be. I'll be like, I saw her before she was attacked by birds. This is crazy. But anyways, this would be evidence of your demise. But anyway,
taken out by birds. Didn't see
yeah,
that one coming.
did not see that. That was not on my my 2022 bingo card. Definitely not. Now, of course, a few years before that, back in 2018, you released a short, "Do You Believe in Ghosts?" which, of course, was a conversation with your grandmother, Claire Elfman, uh,
Yeah.
about 6 months before she passed away. And how much of that conversation kind of influenced the story you're telling? Because you guys were talking very much about life and death and the afterlife.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also goes to show this is just a conversation that I've been having for a very long time, and one that my grandma, who was a writer and a matriarch of the entire Elfman family and such a force of nature, it was very weird to have her not be that powerhouse. When she got Alzheimer's, it was such a shift in our entire family. And I actually was recording a bunch of conversations with her over a long period of time, which were some beautiful, wonderful conversations of her experience. And then towards the end, I really wanted to get one on camera. And oddly enough, that was one of the last times that she was able to have a conversation, was that day that I recorded that. And I think what that did for me is, before I was always trying to, you learn how to make a film and you're trying to fit into the mold, and these are the things you're supposed to do when, and this is how you shot list. And that day when I went there, my grandma kicked out the 3-person camera crew 3 times. She would start and then she'd go, no, I don't want to do this. And it made me, all the plans that I had in the shot list, I just had to listen to what my grandma had to say, and I just needed to follow my heart. And I think that I carried that over. And that I think was one of the best short films that I had made, because I had made a couple of others. And so when I went to make Next Exit and the pandemic hit and we had all these plans and then we had to throw them out the window, I had to listen to my characters. I had to remember my intentions. And when we were showing up to locations on the same day that we would shoot without having to scout, I had to look at where the sun was and I had to make a plan and follow through with it. And I think when you truly know what the scene is about and what you're trying to do, you can do that. But you have to really trust yourself in that way. And I think because of that experience that I'd had in my grandma, I was much more willing to kind of follow my instincts and not rely on what I was supposed to be doing all the time.
Right. Now, you did mention that, yeah, you showed up on locations that was the first time you were getting to see it, and you kind of had to, uh, you know, have people scout these locations for you in advance.
Well, I was
And
one of the scouts.
yeah, you were one of the scouts as well,
Yeah.
but I know there was some place that, as you mentioned, that you didn't get to see until, and that you
Yeah.
were doing
Kansas.
some things digitally, like talking to people who were scouting for you. So when showing up on a set, telling this type of story, first time location, is it suddenly like, are you getting new ideas, or are you just like, oh shit, we got this much time, let's get the money and run, let's go?
Um, I think the thing was like one of the first days was showing up and it hadn't snowed the day before, and all of a sudden the ground was covered in snow. And we were like, all right, it's a snowy part of the movie now. We're leaning into that. Let's put some extra layers on our actors. Um, and again, I had an idea of how I wanted the scene to shoot. That was actually the Father Jack day out on the road, and we did have to really trim that day much more than I would have liked, mainly because we actually started to freeze. Our camera operator's hands actually got frostbite, and so she had to stop for about an hour until we could warm her up. It just got so cold, and you just had to lean into what nature was giving you. Also, unfortunately, some of the most beautiful shots we got out there on that road, because it was just like so magical and the sky was so magical. But it was really kind of leaning into what the reality is that we were dealing with. And again, kind of like my grandma short, it was almost more documentary, I would say, than trying to capture a film, trying to shot list and trying to get exactly what you're after.
Right, right. And with that kind of feeling, like it's a very authentic film. Like the emotion is very raw, very intimate feeling. And of course, you have your two actors, and they're the main focus the entire time. And you have them in a car, which makes it an automatically intimate setting. You know, you got two people right up next to each other the entire time. So was that the reason why the road trip element was always in play? Is that you wanted to kind of force two people into an intimate situation?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to force two people who had opposed ideas to have to sit with one another, to
Right.
have to really actually talk to one another, and to have to take in the outside world together. Both of these characters who are in their own way, who are haunted by something and who are unable to let go of that, to actually put them in a space where most people wouldn't be able to make space for them or listen or hear this, but both of them, because of their situation, is actually exactly what the other person needs. And so just wanting to create a space for that. And then also on a road trip, I've always found that looking out the window and seeing the beauty of the landscape always makes me feel so much more insignificant and small, which I think is a beautiful thing to feel. And then also the people that you meet along the way. You know, we just did a road trip to release the film and met some of the most interesting, weird, exciting people. And I just find that whenever I am in my own way, reaching out to humanity and talking to other people is always the thing that gets me out of my way.
Right, right. Yeah, so the Southwest Haunted Road Trip Tour, right? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting to go across New Mexico and Arizona, again, places that you filmed during the film, and getting to show the movie. What was the
Yeah.
experience to like kind of go back to these places and show your work, show what you've done?
It was a little bit scary. I was afraid that people wouldn't like it. And I was like, oh my God, I care more about what these people think than so many others all of a sudden. The pressure was really on, because it's very important to me that everybody feel respected and heard, be that cast, crew, but also where we shot. And we got to Tucumcari, where we had shot so much. We had shot like 8 days, which was a huge part of this film. and I wasn't sure exactly what they would think about it. And then, sure enough, it went so well, and just so many people came out. They loved the film, but they also got the film, and they also felt like their town was really respected and cared about and well represented, and that just meant the world to me, because I think there's a lot of people who go to these places and just kind of use up a location and then leave.
Mm.
And it was very important to me that the town that gave us this magical kind of film, and that allowed us to do this in a time where it was incredibly difficult to do it, get a chance to actually see the film and be told thank you. I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned the whole thing about some people go in and they just use a set. I live in Southern Ontario in Canada, and
Oh
so
yeah.
they're filming all over the place. And there's sometimes when you can tell, oh, production has just come through because everything looks like shit afterwards. So it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
nice to actually show the respect to the location and actually give it back. It's fantastic.
yeah. And the entire tour, it was very fun. Santa Fe was this very intimate situation where we all talked about death, and it was fantastic and fun. And then Albuquerque was students who really wanted to know more how we did it, like the cameras, the Foley, the like very
Mm.
detailed. And then Phoenix was just, I don't know, it was really wonderful to, I also hadn't been in the room for it to play with non-film festival people. I've only seen it for film festival audiences, which are a certain type of audience,
Yeah.
right? And these were just people who wanted to go see a movie, and see their town. And it was really, really fun, and it was really, really heartening.
Yeah, so you said Santa Fe, the Q&A period was focused mainly on death. And yeah, I know you said that was great. And that's the one thing I think that is really interesting about this film is that it does cover a lot of death, but not in a morbid way. Much
Yeah.
more in, people with, presenting their thoughts and ideas on death. And actually really it kind of then turns the mirror onto like the importance of life.
Yeah.
And so is that basically what this film is about? Is it a celebration of life?
I love that. I mean, honestly, I'm always like, whatever you take away from the film, I try not to make films that are like, and this is what it's about. I think
Right.
there's a lot of ideas, but absolutely, I would say that's a huge theme. Is we are, I shouldn't say, but like everybody's trying to figure out, whether it be a different religion, spirituality, ghosts, monsters, whatever it is, what happens after life. It's a big question for all of us. It's a big fear for many of us, because it's the great unknown, right? It's the thing that we can't know. And so by removing kind of that element, or by adding the we do know, it really makes you focus on, then what is this life and what are we doing here? And so for me, it was very important to, that is definitely, if a huge topic. And the other big thing is the idea of death being this big scary monster for us, right? Maybe if you look at it from another perspective, maybe it actually isn't that scary. And that's kind of a big theme throughout everything. And my whole idea with ghosts is, for ghosts, I'm not very afraid of ghosts. I've had ghost experiences, and I I just think that if we think about the things that scare us from another perspective, we might realize that they're not actually scary. They might actually be something that we need. So,
Right, right. And with that, making this film though, did it change your perspective and your thoughts on, the afterlife, ghosts, death in any way?
no, I don't think it changed my perspective. I think it made me think about it a lot more. I think, and oddly, having to do press for it, I think it has. It's funny because I didn't write this like being like, and now I want to speak about death, and now I want to speak about this. It is an emotional journey that should flow with all of these conversations, hopefully
Yeah.
finding their way through, right? So it's not that strategic for me in a lot of different ways. There are certain elements that are strategic, but for me it was very much about finding that natural flow and making it feel very much like a conversation and very realistic. So hopefully that's the way that it comes across, and hopefully it comes through. And I think that's just kind of me and how I like to
Mm,
talk about things.
yeah.
So I don't know that I had any big epiphanies, but I definitely did enjoy the process and continue to enjoy the process of kind of more discovery, because everybody has a different take on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, as you were saying there, doing press for this, I'm guessing you've been given a lot more questions about stuff that you're just like, no, I just wrote it like this, not thinking that this would spark this idea and that idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain pieces that I knew would people would want to talk about. And it's just funny because people ask you, like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know how. I just did it. And the biggest thing that I can say is it was listening to the response, whether it be people reading the script and asking questions or watching. I love testing a cut. So I test it with a lot of people and listen to people's responses. And trying to do that without fear, I think, is really important as a filmmaker, because if you
Mm,
actually hear what people are saying and what they're feeling, especially when you're building a structure that is emotionally driven, it
right.
allows you to maintain that as opposed to getting too caught up in like specific little elements or notes that actually could catch you up and take away from that feel.
Yeah, yeah. Now, yeah, because again, it's like really, it's a very intimate story. You're focusing on two characters this entire time, and of course, Katie Parker and Ruel Colley did an amazing job together. Fantastic, great chemistry on camera. Of course, they've known each other for a number of years. Did that familiarity kind of help with getting, the performance you needed from them?
They've known each other, but they've never worked together before. Honestly, their styles are wildly different.
Oh yeah.
And I loved it immediately. I think we only had one Zoom, we didn't do any like chemistry tests or anything like that. I knew the way that Katie worked. Katie and I went through every single line of the script and we talked about every single detail and everything. Rahul, macro notes. We talked about everything that happened before page 1 of the script, basically. It was all about his backstory and everything else. So that was really where we focused for him. And Katie, who would rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and has more of that theater style. Rahul, who's like going to come in and nail it on take 1 or take 2, which he always did. Nope, take 1 or take 3. Take that back.
Never take two? Never take two.
Almost never, no.
Wow. One and three. That's interesting.
The 1
Okay.
and 3 type of guy. But I think what I loved is I got them on that first Zoom and immediately Katie was so specific and Rahul was so open and fluid and they just had different styles. And I was like, this is going to be perfect. Because you put those two in a car and you naturally have them kind of opposed, especially at the start of the film. And we shot this almost entirely in order.
Mm.
So they were kind of a little bit more uncomfortable with each other towards the beginning. And the thing that they both had was a mutual respect for one another and a mutual respect for the way that the other one worked. So even though they were different, they listened to one another and they really worked with one another so well. And then as they went and they kind of built up that rapport is when we kind of got to the bigger, more intimate scenes towards the end of the movie. So honestly, I loved it. I would also give them completely opposite direction going into a film and then call action, or into a take and then call action and just watch it explode. And it was fantastic. And it was a joy.
Oh my gosh. So this was a fun little, diametrically opposed people experiment for you, that you got
Oh,
to
it's
work
great.
with actors that approach differently, playing characters that have a totally different approach as well. That's fantastic.
Exactly. And it was so much fun. And it was just, and both of them are also so good and understood these characters so thoroughly that it really was the prep we talked about. We showed up on the day. I would tweak little things here or there, but it was really just about capturing the natural energy that was there and not trying to create moments, but just capture.
Right, right. So basically you had all the pieces in place that you needed to place there, and you just let the magic happen.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's great. And I'm guessing you had so much to work with in the editing because of that.
I mean, honestly, we never had that much. We never had that many takes because we were going so fast. I mean, we were
Right.
road tripping across the country. There was very few things that I had more than 3 takes on, maybe 4. And I had to be pretty specific with my angles. There's not a lot on the cutting room floor. So what you see is what you get. There's a couple of scenes that got cut. There's one scene that got cut that I love so much. It's an arguing scene of them. We just didn't need another one. I get it, but it's so good, and I miss it all the time. But the story didn't actually need it. But yeah, it was just working with those two. They had the natural chemistry, and I also didn't want to interrupt it too much because they had that, and because I knew the film lived or died on their chemistry together. It really was about just creating a space for them to feel free to move.
Mm, yeah. Now you bring that up there, that you had to cut the scene because it just wasn't servicing the film. Yeah, that's got to be hard though. When you like something so much, but no, this is not the way it's working. This got to go.
Yeah. I
You
hate it.
don't like killing your babies.
No, I don't. And you have to do it. And that's also why I've stopped watching the movie, because I can't watch it and not still want to mess with it a little bit or tweak
Right.
it or do this or do that. And the fact is, we shot this so fast. We got through post on it I think the edit was 6 weeks. Like, and we had 5 days of sound. Like, we just got through this thing so quickly. It was super low budget, and I I could mess with it for years to come, and that is it. The film is the film, and I'm very proud of it, and I think it's better to let it stand as is and to move on to the next project, because I would literally still be editing this project if somebody let me.
Well,
And there's
there you
not that
go.
much material. I just keep moving things around.
Yeah. Well, you know how it is. Art is abandoned. It's not finished.
Exactly. 100%.
But of course, you've produced a number of first-time directors, and this was your first feature-length film. So I'm guessing you kind of already knew the ins and outs of what first-time directors go through, and you kind of just didn't have to deal with them. You've already dealt with them from the outside.
Yeah.
So it must have been a lot easier to just get what you want, as opposed to is this going to work? Am I going to fail?
Yeah. I never had that fear of failure. And that's one of the biggest things that I see a lot of directors kind of fall into of, will I succeed or won't I? And the fact of the matter is, that's going to be decided later. Like, the best thing that you can do is just be in the moment and be honest and follow through. The second that you try to get too caught up in how will I be perceived, I think you're ruining it for yourself.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing was, I showed up to the producers not with a script, but with a whole package of like, here is how you could make this film. Of course, it got redone because of COVID and everything else, but I did have an idea. And the other thing is I know a lot of first-time directors try to micromanage because they feel like if they take their finger off of anything that it might fall apart or something like that. I only got to bring on very few people, but the people that I did bring on, I trusted entirely and completely and with all my heart. And I knew that when they needed help, they could come to me. And I tried to create an environment where there was very open and honest communication. And so we would have those conversations. And the biggest thing is that when somebody says, I can't do it, I never fought it. I never tried to tell them they were wrong. I always accepted it and moved on immediately. Because when you do that, it first of all sets the expectation that if somebody says that to you, you're not going to fight them. And so they better have done all the work and know that that is the case.
Yeah.
Because it will be abandoned. And the other thing is it really just puts your trust again back in those department heads to know what the right decisions are. And then you just are free to move into your next thing and not be locked into, but I thought it was this, and just look at the reality of, but this is what it is now.
Well, yeah. Well, there you go. That's definitely, when it comes to indie film, that is actually a great attitude to have. Totally. Now, of course, next on the docket for you, you're writing a script based on, writing a script that's about a haunted house that's based on the house that you grew up in as a kid?
Did you read Fred's article?
I read everybody's article.
Everybody. Well, we'll see. So it's definitely a horror film. That's the one that I'm writing right now. It'll take me a while to write that because I don't write fast. So there will likely be one in between. I hope there's one in between because it should go soon. I'm very eager to direct again. I love directing. I really want to show my hand in the genre horror arena. I really want to be able to place it with some more special effects. I really want to be able to have some blood on set and throw that around. So I'm very eager to get into that realm. But yes, my personal heart and soul is going into another one, which I think this film really opened up for me. Like I realized that I could get through this emotional journey, and so now I'm kind of going a bit deeper into some things of, I guess maybe everybody's been wondering, like, why do you think that about ghosts? And so I'm going to answer it.
Well, there you go. I'm looking forward to that answer. One last quick question: are the birds still trying to attack your window?
I think they are. It's like, it's wild
God.
out there. I don't know. And it's weird that I can't see them. I can only hear them. So it's either that or somebody's playing a really weird prank on me.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep my eye on the news and hope that I don't hear anything about you in that regard. But so stay safe. And thank you so much for talking with me today. And I look forward to more people getting to check out Next Exit.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you making the time.
No problem. Have yourself a great day.
You too.